Please welcome Courtney Starr.
I've been mortified, 45, feeling like a Mordecai. I ain't regular, feel like Jordan wearing 45. Traumatized, victimized, seen some of my die. Knock you off a base with a bat when them.
Okay, hi everybody. I've got Maddie here. We're going to talk about her fitness journey, some struggles that she's overcome. She's thriving now. She's absolutely crushing her improvement season. She's got big goals. She's made leaps and strides with her physique, and I'm excited to have her on here. So, Maddie, do you want to do like a little introduction of who you are and just yourself?
So I'm Maddie. I have been a client of Courtney's for about a year and a half. I first came to her pretty much expressing my goals, and she welcomed me with open arms, and it was the perfect fit. I definitely came not with like the best I guess like package you could say as far as like with competing. And for me it's very eye-opening to see how this sport just requires so much patience. And I wanted to hit the gas so quickly, and as soon as I met her, I was like, all right, like what show are we doing? And this was my first show ever, and so yeah, I've just been with Courtney ever since.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit, like, what do you do for work? What do you
Yeah.
tell us a bit about?
So I am a traveling medical assistant. So I work around the state of Arizona. Really no boundaries as far as where I go. I could go really north, really, I mean, in any direction. My schedule varies daily, depending on if we have tech call outs. I could have a day where I have 5 patients, and then by the end of the day, I see 8 or 9. Or vice versa. I could have a lot of no-shows or people reschedule. So my schedule is never the same. It's never the same people. It's never the same hours. And so for me as a competitor, I have to always make sure that, with meal plans, and I just have to have everything on standby just in case.
Yeah, so your schedule is one of those that's really tough to work around, and you still found a way, you still crush your programming, and it really is just no excuses. I know that you had to overcome some stuff, like even with, when I asked you to do fasted cardio, you weren't wild about it, but you shifted and you found a way to make it happen.
Mhm.
So, okay, so we've been together for about a year and a half. Were you always in shape, or was there a point where you struggled with food? Were you ever overweight? Like, can you tell us about your background just with
Yeah.
fitness?
So growing up, I was raised in a house where it was more military, like parenting. So if we got in trouble, I would have to run 5 miles, 3 miles. I would have to do push-ups. And I think that's where I really got into the fitness aspect. But as far as being healthy about it, I was growing up, I never had healthy eating habits. In high school, I had the mentality of, if I eat less, I won't get big. And then I had a lot of stuff going on in my life my freshman and sophomore year, and I had jumped all the way up to about 160. And for my frame, it was pretty significant. You could definitely tell. And then moved back in with my other parent, came back my senior year, pretty much had like a glow up, I guess you could say. I kind of lost, like, not baby fat, but I was just like, I'm so sick of feeling this way. I mean, it was to a point where I had stretch marks on my side. I had the like, it's not dirt, but it's like the stuff on your skin. Like I was beyond where I wasn't like obese, but I felt so bad about myself. And it was just my eating habits. I honestly would just, emotionally eat. And even when I came with you, I'm still overcoming that. And it's so hard for me because, food is so good. And, sometimes I'm like, dude, yes, like this would cure my depression or like my mood right now. Like this is it. So.
Okay, so were you ever an athlete then, or you weren't in high school or anything?
So I was, yeah. So I played basketball all throughout middle school, high school. It was actually what I was going to do after high school, but I graduated with such a high GPA that my community college around town was like, we will pay for a scholarship for you to pursue nursing. And so at that point, I was just like, okay, well, basketball it's fun and everything, but career wise, I have to look at what my heart was to help others and be in that field. And there's so many different branches in the medical field that you can do. And so with basketball, it's like you get hurt, like that's it, So I wanted to put something that was more reliable for my future. So I was an athlete for about 8, 9 years. I played club basketball. Wasn't very good, keep in mind, but it kept me in shape. I mean, like I hated suicides, like the running that we did on the
Oh
court.
yeah.
I would cry. Like I just was so out of breath and so out of shape that I was just like, I truly cannot believe that where I'm at now, because my past self would just everything that I have had to overcome, even just like literally back till high school. Like this has definitely been a sport, and bodybuilding has like saved my life. So yeah.
Wow, yeah. So when you were overweight then in high school, you were playing basketball at that time as
Yes.
well?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. And when you say your eating habits, so was it when you were in high school, were you bringing food to school or were you eating food that was available? Was there fast food in the lunchroom? Can you tell
Dude,
me a little bit about that?
literally both. I mean, yeah, like there was a little snack shack and I would go in and get like 2 bags of Doritos, 2 cookies. Like it was, and it's not even that I was eating like a lot per se, but it was just so much processed, not whole food. I was messing up my metabolism with, not having breakfast, but I would stop and get a coffee. So I'm starting my day out with sugar. Just not really like whole food meals. And it's crazy because like my dad was growing up, he was all organic. And I think that's maybe where the root of my eating habits started, because even at such a young age, I saw my friends, they would have cupcakes, and when they had parties, like I couldn't have any of that. I would literally get an apple, and I was like, dude, like I want to know what that tastes like. I want to. And so then I feel like it developed into like an emotional crutch for me. That's where food came in and was like, okay.
Okay, that's an interesting take. So you felt like you were over restricted with your dad and not able to have those things. So then you just went in.
Oh yeah.
And then that continued all the way through high school.
Hmm.
And then when you said that you were over it and you wanted to lose the weight and you didn't feel good about yourself, what did you do to intervene to start getting that weight off and get in better shape?
So I mean, I it really just came down to calorie deficit. I would hit the gym, I'd hit cardio. I wouldn't eat the way I was supposed to. I was starting to eat better. But as far as being a healthy routine, I mean, there was nothing really healthy about it until honestly I met you. Even with
Okay.
my previous coach, we had started out, I had told him, hey, I don't eat a lot. And so when we started our prep for a show, I started out such low calories that by the time I got to like whatever 3, 4 weeks out my body became stagnant. My body wouldn't lose any more weight. So, yeah, your programs, I don't know what about them, but man, they do wonders.
I love it. I love it. Yes, and I want to get into all that. But really quick before we do, okay, so you had a previous coach. You said that you started with the calorie deficit when you were trying to lose the weight. So how much knowledge did you have on macros and calories at that point? Did you know how to calculate your macros? Did you know what food you should be eating? Did you know, how many times you should be eating? And were you successful with getting that weight off initially?
Initially, yeah. I mean, and like during the whole prep, I want to say I lost like a little over 20 pounds. Um, as far as like being familiar with macros, no, it was kind of similar to you where they gave me a meal plan and I followed it and it said meal one, meal two. It was very complex, but I feel like I was so new to bodybuilding at that time that I just kind of went with, what I was told. I didn't, but again, with my previous coach, nothing but excuses, like as it was successful as far as losing weight, but competing and getting your body to that state is so hard mentally sometimes that I was doing that prep for everyone around me except for myself. And so I began
Hmm.
to not want to do this for me, so
Yeah, yeah. I want to dig deeper into that as well. Okay, but my last question about going into before this. So you felt not good in your body, and then that was your move was to hire a coach to help you lose the weight. So how old were you when you did that between, when you hired your first coach and when you wanted to get that weight off?
So my first coach was also Sebastian's first coach. That's the reason why I actually got into bodybuilding, is because I saw Sebastian do a show and I was like, I saw the women up there. I was like, I feel like this would be the ultimate dream for me, is to be up there and just showcase all my hard work. So we had agreed to work with both the same coach. And I want to say that was back in 2021, or no, the beginning of 2022 is when I started.
Okay, gotcha.
Mhm.
Okay. So that was a couple years ago. So you work with the coach, felt like you're overdieted, your body stopped responding, and you didn't get on stage, right? Or did you?
No, no.
Okay.
I forgot what had happened in my life, but I was just like, I think honestly, mentally, it was just getting too much for me. I something, my gut feeling was just like, I don't want to go to my first show and have this be the outcome. I know I can bring better. I know, and even, I mean, with me and you, we both agreed that with conditioning and glute wise, like that could, but I'm so glad that I got my first show over with, because that was just like, at least I know what to expect for when I bring a nationally good package. I know what to expect.
Yeah. Okay. And so for those of you guys trying to follow this, so basically what happened was, so Maddie hires coach, does the prep. She said she's doing it for everybody but herself, which I want to dig into. She doesn't do the show. Later, we meet at the gym. She comes up to me. We talk about it. I end up signing her on. We did complete a contest prep and put her on stage for the first time. She did win her class and get to go up for the overall. She didn't take the overall, but she got a class win at her first show, which is a huge accomplishment. Um, so when you say that that first prep, you were doing it for everybody but yourself, can you can you tell us what that looked like? Like, were you getting hype from your family and from your parents and from your coach, but you didn't feel good about yourself? Or who was invested that you felt like you needed to do it for outside of yourself?
I felt like I was doing my first prep to prove, like, to my primarily like my family, on my dad's side. That for me was, it's hard because, you know, someone who's supposed to be very supportive of you and talks so poorly of you, even at a young age, you know, like, you know, you're all you're going to do is like be a loser and you're not going to go anywhere in life. And so for me, it was like, this was my opportunity to kind of prove that wrong. And then that for me just wasn't enough like fire in me to do that for me. And so, and then also like seeing Sebastian do his show, you know, I didn't want to let him down. And I feel like in a marriage, you know, like if you see one person do something, you know, you want to try to do the same thing and be that power couple. But just back then, I don't know, I was lacking that mentality and the toughness and no excuses. Like, so yeah, it was hard, but you know, and sometimes it takes a couple of preps or a couple of, you know, not every time, you know, you're going to wake up and be like, I want to do a bodybuilding show. Maybe you're not going to succeed on that first time. And I didn't either. I mean, the first, you know, couple of times that I tried to do an off season, I was so scared of getting my calorie take up. So I never was able to have a proper off season, build the muscle I needed to. So it just takes sometimes a couple of attempts.
Yeah, and I think too, sometimes it can be you're looking for that external validation. So you feel like if you look this way, your dad's the military guy, he's an organic guy. You know, maybe your relationship was kind of rocky, so you wanted to prove that you could do hard things too, or had the discipline and show him that. And I think that that's, you know, it's a noble quest, right? Like you wanted to do this thing, but it takes time to build the to be able to follow through with the show. That discipline, that resilience, those habits, it's a skill. That's where a lot of people I think miss, is they think some people think it's something they have or they don't. And with that first prep, I commend you, because if they have something that doesn't work the first time, they won't try again, or they won't develop those skills. They'll just be like, oh, I guess this isn't for me. And then they'll back off. And I mean, granted, by getting on a bodybuilding stage, you could say it's, you know, not for everybody for sure. But I think even if people don't take it to the level of stage, the learning how to eat properly, because you don't know. Like, I know if you were like this when you're in high school, I didn't know how to eat. I ate Taco Bell for breakfast. Like,
Yeah.
when I started getting in shape, my family bought a CrossFit gym and my dad owned it and we had games athletes. And I mean, we were doing CrossFit, sure, but it was like get a pizza after. Like,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
had no idea how to control what my physical body looked like. And bodybuilding for me is when I learned how to do that, I was like, why isn't everyone doing this? This is awesome.
Right. Yeah.
So I get that. Okay, so you said that you're okay. So we did the show. So can you tell us a little bit about the show experience of the first time that you competed before you got off stage, what that prep was like, what was different for you going into it? Because you had one that was not successful, you gave it the try again, and it was. So I want to know what was different.
My coach was different, and I think that that was like, if you have a good fit, like anything that you put your mind to, like if someone came to you with a goal, I feel like if it's a good perfect fit, it'll work out no matter what happens. My first prep, oh man, I don't know, I just took every day as an opportunity to get better, but also like sulk in, like, okay, this is probably the last time I'm gonna be this way, look this way. I know next week I'm gonna look better. And it was hard, like balancing wanting to look better, but also being content with like what I look like now. Obviously, you know, you're hungry to get better. But I try to be more like, okay, I like how I look, even though I know next week I'll look leaner. You know, I still try to not, and I wasn't as like snippy or you know, when my family or even like Sebastian and my sister, like when they would have Buffalo Wild Wings, I'm like, okay, I signed up for this. Like, you know, I can't be mad at y'all. I don't expect you to also meal prep with me. And so my whole mentality was so different the second time. Um, Leading up to my first show, I don't think I've ever told you this, but I had brought rice cakes and honey and everything. And the night before my show, I ended up having like 5 or 6 rice cakes with honey. Like I was so close to the finish line. And, you know, I was just like, I just felt like I was so dying. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to have this. And so again, my first prep, it didn't go the way I wanted to. But there's always room for improvement, you know? And so um being on stage, even like, I don't know, before being on stage, I like blacked out. There was so much light on me, and I just felt like I was blinded. And I was just, I mean, I literally forgot my posing routine for 2 seconds. You know, they were like face the back, and I forgot how to do my routine for a second until I looked at the girl next to me, like, okay, now I remember, like hers was a little similar. So everything was so surreal to me that by the time it was over, you know, even now I look back at videos and pictures and I'm like, dang, like I really did that. And I got my body to a point where I never thought I would. And so, yeah, post-show rebound was, I don't know if we're into that yet, but
We're gonna get into that. Don't worry. Okay, but just to be clear, when you say your first prep just now, we're talking about the one where you completed it all the way through.
yes,
With the
yes.
right date. Okay, perfect, perfect. Okay, it's pretty normal to black out on stage the first time, I think, and like forget your posing routine. It happens all the time. You know, you practice, 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 and then like you go into this fight or flight mode that you maybe haven't experienced that way before. It's scary being on stage in a bikini in front of everybody.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but no, you did great and you ended up winning your class. So, okay. So did you know that you were going to win or did you expect to win your class when you got off stage or were you just like what happened?
So literally 4 weeks prior, I followed the Steve Carr on Instagram, which was honestly such a mistake on my part because some of the women on there, I was just like, dude, if they are in my class, I'm literally probably gonna get last. And I remember crying. I broke down with Sebastian and I was like, dude, I don't know if what I'm going to bring is enough. You know, like top 5 got medals. I was like, I told Sebastian, I want to just at least get top 5. And then now thinking about it, like I walked away with a first, which is like crazy to me. Like I feel like even for myself, like I let the influence of everyone around me all my life tell me that I wasn't going to get what I wanted. And then I did it. And then I was like, okay, I think that's where it was like, I can do this. Um, so yeah. I forgot the
Yeah, because I remember then, like, even when you came and when we were getting ready to put you on stage, you were pretty nervous beforehand. You were worried about your conditioning. You were worried about your midsection specifically, which was pretty tight.
yes.
I mean, honestly, but you were so nervous about it. And that's where, as a coach, it's like, especially with the first time competitor, you know, I think it's really important to understand the feelings that you have. And like, I think like when it I can't control the outcome. Like when I put you on that stage, I put you on there with the best conditioning you could have, with the muscularity that we have. You know, we brought your best with what we had, and it won that day. It doesn't always, but it sometimes it does, and that's the thing. Like people, I think if you're, especially if you're doing it for external validation reasons, it's it's never, you can even win and sometimes it still won't be enough depending on what you looked like. You know, you can win your class and still be like, well, dang, I could be better. Or then you see other people at the show and then it kind of gives you an idea of what's possible. And you can kind of, it's your choice what you do with that for your mindset. You can look at that as, wow, she did that, I can do that. Or wow, that's what's coming down the pipe for me if I put in more time and more work. And so
Right.
I think you were really good with your headspace about that too, with you were humble enough to take the win as like a yes, you did something you never thought you could do, but then you also saw the overall winner and you were like, let's go. You were
Yeah.
ready, right? Like, would you
Yeah.
say that's kind of how you were feeling?
Yeah, yeah. And backstage, like I met some awesome people and I feel like, the girl that won my show overall, Maddie, she's someone that I look up to. She actually, okay, so it's crazy because she competed at my show, turned around, still did an off season a little bit. They still tweak some things. This year alone, she has won her pro card. She has already done her pro debut. And it's crazy to think that like she was at the same show I was, and it's inspiring to see girls, take to that level. And this year I've met so many people in the fitness and bodybuilding industry that if you surround yourself with people who have pro cards, there's going to be a chance where it's your turn, like I just feel like I surrounded myself with such a different crowd. And that's also what's really helped me still push and it's gas on the pedal. I feel like I have a lot of people that look up to me, whether that's my siblings, because I am the oldest out of 11. And I have, just a big family, and my mom's side of the family, they don't really eat well. We're Colombian. We love our rice and our beans, man, and our tortillas, but they commend me as well because they're like, you're the only one in this family that has ever done this. So it's
That's
different.
amazing, though. I love that. I love it. And I think when you can show your family, especially now with where you're at in your improvement season, it's like you're not suffering, you're not overly hungry, you're having a good time. You've got multiple refeed kind of cheat meals per week, and like you still look amazing and you're progressing. And so I think showing people that it's not like the final weeks of prep all the time, you can, I mean, completely change the trajectory of your family, just by doing what you love and just leading by example. So 11, that's a lot though. That's a big family.
Yeah.
So okay, so really quick, last thing mentality wise before the show I want to touch on is you followed the Steve car, you saw these amazing looking women, you were a little bit nervous, maybe had a little bit of self-doubt going into it. How did you overcome that and get on stage and do what you did despite those feelings?
I feel like they were always there. They were just suppressed with nerves. And, by the time I had gotten on stage, it was like I didn't really have time to really think about like, oh, how am I going to do this? I just had to do it. They line you up and they're like, all right, get on stage, like but leading up to it, I got my makeup done. I got my tan done. Um, I was just ready. I don't know, mentally, I feel like I had, you know, thought about the whole mentality space of it, doing prep. I knew that this was my time. And, all my nerves kind of hit me after prejudging, which is crazy because, like, I don't, you were there, so but it was between me and one other girl. And, her glutes had looked a lot fuller and, because of her posing. And I was, too bent forward a little bit. So it just didn't make my glutes look as good. And so that's when the nerves came in because there was a huge possibility. I thought for sure I was going to get second. And I know placing doesn't matter, but when it comes down to getting a lesser place because of your posing, I felt like that was just more nerve-wracking because I had practiced so much. And I was just like, dude, how am I? But I had practiced in front of the mirror. I hadn't practiced where I didn't see myself, so on stage, it just, yeah.
It
So
was different. Yeah. And just to be clear too, it was between one and her and one other girl for first place. There was what, 5 or 6 in your class?
I think there was 5.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
6 to start out, but
Yeah. So then it was kind of back and forth. They were choosing between first and second, between Maddie and another girl. Um, and yeah, it was awesome. You got your first and it was great. So then, okay, so you kind of gave yourself the opportunity to succeed. So you just kind of swallowed back those feelings, suppressed everything to get you there. You get on stage, all the nerves hit you.
Yeah.
Then it was just kind of, then you heard your name called at finals, and that was freaking dope.
Yeah, I was shocked, honestly.
So post show, especially because this is going to relate to a lot of people right now, and this is something I feel like I honestly need to have more content specifically talking about, but you've kind of done it to where maybe you were a little bit of a extra snacker out the gate, and then you've like right now you're having your best improvement season yet, but I know going in and out of diet phases, you've had maybe not the best time coming out of a diet phase like that, and then you've locked in and crushed it. So coming out of that show,
Mhm.
real, raw, transparent, what happened with your mentality around food, following your reverse in that process?
Yeah, so after my show was in Vegas. We went over to the Venetian. We had dinner. I had Fat Tuesdays. I had like two or three slushy drinks. And that night, my stomach was just so upset. Like I felt like I was gonna puke. I actually like walked around your house, like walked around your kitchen, and I was just like, dude, I feel like I have to puke. I can't sleep. I can't lay down. And I just was like, dude, my stomach hurts, man. I felt like, um, but afterwards, the day after we had stopped and got in and out, I definitely had my good, 2 days of eating, you know, horribly and enjoying myself. I wouldn't say, eating horribly, I'd say enjoying myself. But once I got back home, I tried to limit, I mean, because I had to go back to eating what I, started and then reverse and build up those calories. But man, my body was just like, this is not enough food. It was just like, no, like you need more. So I definitely went into a phase where, I didn't get the right choices as far as like getting Halo Top or making healthy decisions. I would get the big tubs of ice cream and like just sit down and just gorge, and I loved it. I mean, it sucks to say that I wouldn't take it back. Like obviously, I know everything's a learning lesson, and I don't even know what I got up to because that was my show in November. I just know that by the time June of the next year hit, I was up to 160. My stage weight was about 131. And so that can you just right there, 30 pounds up from, 6 to 8 months. Um, yeah, it was hard. And I think that when I had checked in and you had noticed as a coach that I was progressively, getting into a phase where you were like, I know you don't want to go down this road. Trust me, like, the check-in that you had sent me was so real and so raw, and I just could feel that you were worried about me. Like, Matt, you cannot keep doing this. You need to get on. Hearing the stories that you had told me, I was like, well, I don't want to be, like that. So it really helped me understand that I need to get back on track, and I can't just let the one win from that show I can't be satisfied with just that. There's more work that needs to be done, but that requires a lot on my end too. I can't just expect to have, a lot of work and not put in the work for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so in that time period where you gained that weight, were you following a program or like even roughly? Because I think what I've noticed that happens to people is they think they can do like 90%. They'll be like, okay, well, maybe if I follow the first few meals of the day and then I can just eat what I want for dinner, or maybe if I just eat a couple meals on plane and then I kind of do my own thing, or I can substitute, or I can change it. Like people want to change it to something that's going to be a little more comfortable for them, but then what they feel like isn't that bad lands them 30 pounds up. Like not everybody,
Right.
they don't understand how they got there, because in their mind they're like, well, I'm still eating pretty healthy, I'm making okay choices. Like you said, you went for the tub of ice cream, but sometimes what happens is they'll go for the Halo Top, or they'll go for the lower calorie item, or they'll be like, well, I'm eating it's avocado so it's healthy, or you know what I mean, and then
Right.
they're like, well, how did I get here? Did you notice any of that, or were you just completely, you know what I mean, just like
Yeah.
F it, mentally you're not there for the plan?
Yeah, so right before we had started my mini cut in June, I was definitely the competitor where, like you said, I was only giving 90%. Maybe like Monday through Friday, I would stick to plan, but then weekends, like me and Sebastian, I mean, literally every single meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner. I mean, like we had Chick-fil-A, In and Out in like the whole week. So the progress that I did make during the week, it just reversed on the weekends. And, again, when I would check in with you and when on the questionnaire, it said, diet adherence, and I kept putting okay. And as a coach, you were like, Matt, okay is not, we can only do this for so long. Like you cannot have like, I need this to be either good or like, perfect, but there's no choice, or there's no, oh my gosh, what's the word? There's no point in me updating your meal plan if you're not even, following the one I gave you now. And so I feel like there's just been kind of a lot of reality checks from you. And that's kind of what I need. Growing up, I was always the oldest, whether it daughter or son, I was always the oldest. And so for me, I look at you like, not only are you my mentor, but, I look up to you so much. And so what you tell me, I take that to heart, and sometimes I need that reality, like, hey, that harsh reality check. Like you need to get on your stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that I love about you, ever since we started working together, is you have big goals and you want these big things and you see yourself on big stages. And so I think for you, the way that I attack that is that means, you know what I mean? There's a certain level of discipline and adherence that has to come with that. But the other thing is like I wanted to show you that it doesn't have to be miserable, but coming out of that reverse set, you have to be more careful. But even right now, you're eating 2 cheat meals a week. You know what I mean? It might not be breakfast, lunch, and dinner all weekend, every weekend, but I always want to show people that you can work up to more flexibility and you should enjoy your menu, especially in the improvement season. And you shouldn't be suffering, or it shouldn't be uncomfortable to follow a plan. Like, I want you to like your food. I want you to be able to follow the process and enjoy it and not have that FOMO, like that fear of missing out on like the Chick-fil-A and all the crazy meals. So but I can only show people that when they give me the opportunity to by walking that path. Because you can't partially walk it. You know what I mean? You can't walk it Monday through Friday, go on the weekends, and then still see those results. It's like it has to be, it has to work with your body. And that's the thing too. It's like I think people see other clients doing it or other pros or people doing it, so they think they can do it, but your body tells me what to do. Your body literally tells me when you're ready for that or when we can push it. And I think you've experienced a lot of that with this improvement season. So going from that to then you decided to do a mini cut. Can you talk about how that went and what your mindset was going into that without a show date?
Yeah, so same thing with a mini cut. We had done a couple of weeks where I wasn't 100%. I gave a good diet adherence, and yeah, you told me that this was going to be very challenging because we didn't have that show date planned, and so for me, I was definitely getting more lenient with my diet and not being so strict. And then once I had completely locked in, there was a week where I had dropped 5 pounds in 1 week. And I was just like, damn, like the results don't lie. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, yeah, like I heard something the other day and it was really good. It was it pretty much like if you make excuses today, it'll make tomorrow harder. But if you just, don't make excuses today and do it, then tomorrow will be easier. And so for me, it's like that's that's really like the best way to explain it is, it was hard, don't get me wrong, being in a mini cut, not having a show date, but where I'm at now, it's perfectly aligned it to where now we see still the improvements I need to make, but still being lean in the sense of not like stage lean, but lean to where I feel good, because back in June when I was up there, it's crazy because like I look at pictures and you can't really tell that I was that like 160, but in my check-ins, I was like, wow, like comparing my check-ins is just night and day difference. So again, I mean, for me, most of the things that happen, I don't succeed on the first try very, very often. It's very rare that you give me something and I'm like, okay, cool. Like sometimes, and that's where I think being so new to this sport, that's bound to happen, you know, but I think the more that I work with you and, you know, you give me something, also the more I trust you, you know, with time comes more trust. And so, you know, at first I was definitely like skeptical. I'm like, dang, you know, is this, I not like, I don't know. I was just,
You can be honest. I love it. I think it's normal. And I hear that too, because I've been on the other side. Like I know what it's like to, not trust or be skeptical, or you have a husband or a significant other in your life that's like, what are they doing? Why is your coach doing that? Like, I'm the coach now. So, like, I know what that's like, or friends and family. I was actually typing out a long form post a story. One of my baby competitors, her dad and her brother watched her go through her prep and they questioned me. They questioned my integrity. They questioned the process that she was going through. It was her first show. They've never seen her go through that. And it wasn't until they saw her on stage, her dad and her brother went to the show. They were like, oh my God, like they understood. I could see it. They were there. I met them. Like, and she broke down to me. She was crying sometimes when we'd be posing together leading up to the show because they were giving advice that was not right, not out of a place of they didn't want to hurt her progress. They don't want to hurt her goals, but they don't know. Like, they genuinely don't know any better. So I had to get her to trust me, to quiet the noise. Let's do this and then tell me I'm wrong. Let's listen to them after this.
yeah,
And then all of a sudden, everything made sense and it was a 180. Then the following weekend, she competed again. Her dad, who maybe wasn't the most supportive at first, flew to Reno for a day to watch her and then flew back home that night so he could go to work. So it's like, you struggle to trust. There's other voices that also don't trust. My coach is doing this. Why is your coach doing that? Like, well, why would that work? We read a study that says this. So
right.
no, I totally get it. And that's why I want you can be totally honest. Cause like I said, this is something, it's not just you, I overcome it with everybody.
Yeah.
And so it's it does. You have to just try. That's why I always just tell people, I'm like, look, humor me with this for a week then, to humor me, do it
Yeah.
for a week. That if it doesn't work, we'll do it your way,
Yeah.
but
The passive cardio, I still remember you were like, give it the old college try. I was like, oh,
yeah, that's what
gotta
I
do
do.
that.
Because the other thing too is like we put so much like pressure and stress on this. And it's like, even when for you, 160 was like a very uncomfortable place, but that's not abnormal for a lot of other women to get there. And you know what I mean? That there's nothing about the weight number, but for you, that was a moment. But it's like, we put this at the end of the day, it's just weight is but a number. And like I was telling you with, other girls who have maybe gone a little overboard sometimes, they feel so bad and it's your body that you experience life in. And you, there's just so much feelings about yourself on it, but it's it's weight loss. It's fat. This is what we do. Like I can turn that around so quick if you let me. It's like we can undo just about anything. It's very hard to create permanent damage. And so I found too that by removing the stress, if I can, or like I said, even the pressure of, oh my gosh, I have to wake up earlier and do fasted cardio and I have to go to bed earlier unless I'm going to suffer for sleep. It's like the anxiety and your brain doing something that you haven't done in at least a really long time that's worse than actually just giving it a go.
Right.
So
Yeah.
because when you started doing it, it wasn't that bad, right? Or was it? I mean,
Like
how uncomfortable was that switch?
fasted cardio.
Yeah.
I mean, it got up to an hour. So,
Yeah.
it
But
was
I mean the waking up part, the changing your habit, like you know what I mean? Overcoming that discomfort.
it honestly wasn't very hard for me to do that because maybe like the first couple of days doing that, I would literally wake up, brush my teeth and go. I didn't do my hair, I didn't do anything. And so for me it was a little bit of an adjustment just because being an hour of cardio doing stairs like first thing, your body's like, what the hell? Like I feel like I was still half asleep half the time. But what's cool is every time I went, I would also go and there would be another competitor, one of my friends also doing fasted cardio. So it's so like you know, reassuring sometimes to know that you are not the only one doing this. Even I know there's a lot of people nationwide probably doing fasted cardio, but for me, seeing that one of my friends are also doing it, it's like, okay, you know, we would chat, and the next thing you know, an hour is already done. I'm like, well, that was easy, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And for everybody watching this too, her cardio, even in the mini cut, did get up to about an hour, but that's not something I would normally do. What I did with Maddie was I almost kind of tried to talk her out of the mini cut a little bit. Like I almost tried to talk her out of it. And I was like, are you sure? Are you ready to commit to this? This is not going to be worth it if you don't send it. And what happened was I didn't start her off with an hour. We started it off at a little bit. She got really disciplined on her diet. She was like, no, I want this. I don't just want this a little bit. I want this. And I was able to read her energy and her mentality. And then what happened was she started getting a little bit of results and she was like, oh my God, this is awesome. And then those results are what kind of created this domino effect of this attitude that I call coach push me harder. So I'm almost talking her out of it. And she's like, push me harder, push me harder. I want more of that to like, where she craved and like, all right, well, guess guess we're gonna push the cardio a little bit because there's a certain point where I won't push it past. But if you're locked in and you're aggressive about that fat loss, we can push it, but it your mind has to be there. It's always the mind that's the hardest thing to overcome first. So I think too, like kind of triggering that and pulling that out of people. And like I said, I almost tried to talk her out of it. But then when she's talking herself into it, I mean, there was no stopping you, Maddie. You were right.
Exactly.
And you
Yeah.
did in your mini cut. How much weight did you drop?
So I started at 160 roughly, like point something. I think the lowest we got down to was about 141. So the
Mhm.
goal was at first it was 145. Once I hit 145, I was like, that 5 pounds, I could, you know, let's push for 140. And so, you know, I did it, but still in a healthy manner. Whereas before, I feel like, you know, I would do it. I mean, I'm pretty extreme with my check-ins. And when I say that, I mean the day before check-ins, I get all my food in really early. I fast. I wake up in the morning. I go to the restroom. You know, if I like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's a lot more healthy now because beforehand, like we would go back to sleep more. That way we wake up lighter. And so now it's like I'm not really more focused on the scale per se, um, but yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. So she dropped about 19 pounds with that mini cut, which is huge success. And then, her waistline came down. Her body was looking pretty good. What the reason kind of why we pulled out of that mini cut before she set her other goal of 140 was you had some type of family event and we needed to give you like a refeed or like some type of burger. You had something going on, and I basically fed you more. And when I fed her more after dieting, and she did perfect, she didn't overdo the refeed meal or what can also be referred to as a super saturation day, she actually continued to drop a little bit. Or, yeah, she dropped. So we got her down at her lowest to like 141, but I think it was like 143 before that. So we give her the super saturation, she drops. And I was like, oh, we are on. Now we're
Yeah.
on. So when
Yeah.
we're on like that and you're disciplined, you're following it perfectly. I think maybe so I pulled back your cardio. We gave you some spike days, and you actually continued to drop a little bit. It was like little 1 pound, half pound drops for a few weeks.
Mhm.
I was like, all right, let's go. Let's keep feeding you more. So then naturally we kind of started to reverse her. Her body continued to respond. And then even now with her check-ins, it's like, okay, so we're not necessarily, there's a point in the reverse diet where you're not really looking for the weight drops anymore. You're looking for measurement changes, even if the weight goes up or maintains. And so now this was actually the first week where we were kind of on a different upswing. So her weight came up a little bit by like 1 or 1.5 pounds, but her glutes came up and her waistline stayed the same. So after the mini cut, we had family things. We did some reverse dieting where she continued to drop, and now the drops aren't really happening, but her glutes are coming up and her waistline is staying the same, which means we are exactly where we want to be in an improvement phase. She's got 2 refeeds. Your daily intake is pretty decent. We're continuing to push things up. I know you hate cardio, so we've been pulling back your cardio. which is now at what, like 4 by 20 minutes or something like that?
Yeah, 4 by 20.
Yeah. So cardio is pretty minimal at this point, and you've got a decent amount of flexibility. So how are you feeling right now with your reverse diet and with the improvement phase?
Dude, I feel so much better. And I feel like you said, sometimes, pulling out the things that need to be pulled out. Unfortunately, I don't have a relationship with my dad. I haven't talked to him in a little over 2 years. And I feel like that was honestly the best decision that I could have done for myself, because I just felt like, having that just presence, or just having that, I don't know, like aura that he just can't keep to himself. And, unfortunately, anyone that has a relationship with him, he just, it just like spills onto you. And so for me, it was like, if I want to be successful in this sport, I have to eliminate things in my life that are going to hold me back and hinder my progress. And so that relationship, being his first daughter, I've always fought for our relationship. And it got to a point where I had to kind of just give it to God and say, okay, I'm letting go of this. And it's honestly been such a breath of fresh air. And like you said, I have the feelings sometimes, not even just with my relationships or my friendships, of the fear of missing out. Me and Sebastian have such a routine thing that often we're like, are we missing out? We're only young for this, amount of time. And all of our friends, not all, but most of our friends are doing this on their Fridays and Saturday nights, and we're training like weird, so it's definitely been a awesome up and down roller coaster ride, and I wouldn't want it any other way. Like I feel like everything has happened for a reason in my life, and you just take it a day at a time. And I feel great right now, and my headspace is awesome. I cannot wait to see what we have for next year. And yeah, so lots to look forward
Yeah,
to.
the goals are just kind of getting bigger. So now what we're doing is we're just continuing to grow, focus on glutes, focus on the overall density. The quality of your training has gotten so much better, especially with the sessions we've done and everything. And I'm excited for you looking at future shows next year. But if there was one thing you could tell, let's say you got um girls who struggle with similar things. Maybe I really like what you said about the negativity in your life, and I'm sure that wasn't easy to step away from your dad for a little while because of the negative energy that was coming down on you. If you had any advice for girls who find themselves in similar situations, or any tricks, what would you say to them?
I would say to be okay, like be open to, I guess, sharing your like testimony. As far as, I was the type of person where I felt like I didn't want any friends per se. I felt like, friends, anyone will always disappoint you. Something will happen, there'll be excuses. For me, I feel like just being more open to having friends and sharing the similar stories, and not being embarrassed or afraid to tell girls, hey, this is what I'm going through. And you'd be surprised how many girls I've said something to, and they're like, dude, same. And I'm like, okay, cool, like we related on that. And you kind of heal each other's, either what it's trauma, insecurities. I feel like my whole mentality of friends has really changed and shifted, because at the end of the day, this sport, I do not think that you can do this alone. It just goes to show you, any competitor, ideally you want to coach. I've seen people go on stage, coach themselves. It's very rare. I don't even know what their success was, but it just, make sure to have the community around you, and utilize that. Like, same thing with, I feel like, with church and marriage groups, and with my marriage, like you said, a lot of the things that we do in this sport leak into other aspects of our life. And so, like, for me also, like, it made me realize that with my marriage, we can't just rely on me and him. Like, we have to incorporate God into that, and just be more of a community. And I think that's really why I have been pushed to doing a sport like this, is because God kind of knew that I was in my shell to myself, and he was like, you can do a lot if you just put yourself out there and trust. So
Yeah, for sure. I love that. I love that. Bodybuilding, and that's, building that physical thing is so much more than just that. And I always try to tell people that through and through. So, Mads, thanks for coming on here. I think people are gonna really appreciate hearing from you, and we'll have to do this again sometime.